Ladies and gentlemen, seekers of wisdom, defenders of self-worth, there comes a moment in every person's life when they are faced with a decision, not between right or wrong, but between peace and chaos, between self-respect and self-abandonment. And in that very moment, the most profound act you can do is to walk away in silence. Yes, ghost him. Not out of revenge, not out of cruelty, but out of absolute clarity that you are no longer available for half-love emotional crumbs or one-sided energy exchanges. When you remove yourself completely and unapologetically, something miraculous begins to happen. The universe takes note. It sees your standard. It hears your silence. And it begins to move things in your favor. You see the weak scream, the powerful go quiet. You have spent too long trying to explain your worth to someone committed to misunderstanding you. And the longer you stay in spaces where you are not celebrated, the more you betray your own potential. But when you ghost him, completely and without looking back, you send out a signal that your value is no longer up for negotiation. Now here's what most people don't understand. Silence is not absence. Silence is presence, multiplied. It is energy being redirected into your growth, your healing, your elevation. And while he may question where you went, you'll already be on a higher frequency, unavailable for anything less than what you deserve. Listen carefully. When you ghost someone who took your presence for granted, you don't just walk away, you rise. And in your rising, you become a magnet, a force, a vision of someone who no longer chases, no longer begs, no longer settles. This is not about hurting someone else. This is about healing yourself. It is about sending a loud, clear message without saying a single word. I choose me. When you ghost him and stop feeding the cycle of inconsistency and disrespect, you allow nature to do what it always does: reveal truths. Watch how quickly people realize your worth the moment they no longer have access to you. You don't chase what's running from you. You don't water what refuses to grow. You don't beg someone to see what is already radiant within you. Ghosting him isn't cowardice. It's courage. It is the quiet revolution of self-worth. It is the highest form of emotional discipline. It is you deciding, once and for all, that your energy belongs only where it's cherished, not merely tolerated. And when you do this, when you vanish into greatness, into peace, into focus, you won't have to seek revenge. You won't need closure. Your success, your silence, your elevation, that becomes the loudest response. Ghost him completely, and then watch what happens next. Because what's coming is so much better than what you left behind. In the realm of human connection, few tools are as underestimated yet as profoundly effective as silence. Silence, when used with purpose and clarity, becomes a strategic power move, an act not of weakness but of inner strength and self-mastery. When you choose not to respond, when you choose to withdraw your energy from someone who has been inconsistent, disrespectful, or emotionally unavailable, you're not being passive. You are making a powerful decision to protect your peace and prioritize your well-being. Most people fear silence because it forces them to confront the truth. It removes the noise, the excuses, the distractions. It reveals the true state of a relationship. When you fall silent, especially after being present, supportive and consistent, it causes a ripple. The absence of your voice, your energy, and your attention begins to echo in the spaces where it was once taken for granted. Silence forces the other person to stop and ask themselves, why did they pull away? That pause, that uncertainty, creates a psychological impact more powerful than any argument or emotional outburst could ever create. There is strength in choosing not to react. When you go silent, you're no longer playing a role in the drama. You're stepping out of the chaos and reclaiming your power. You're saying, I no longer invest in things that don't invest back in me. You let go of the need to explain yourself, justify your value, or chase after clarity that should have been freely given. In this silence, you gain clarity. You learn how much peace is worth. You realize that someone who is truly meant for you will not require you to scream for attention. They will already be listening. Silence also communicates standards. It tells the other person that if they cannot meet you with mutual effort and respect, then they don't get to have access to you. Silence says what words cannot. It draws boundaries, it demands recognition, and in many cases, it prompts self-reflection in the other person. Suddenly, they start to remember all that you brought into their life, not because you reminded them, but because your absence made it undeniable. This is not about playing games. It's about taking back emotional control. In a world where we are constantly pushed to respond, to explain, to react, it takes a deeply grounded individual to stay quiet and let the silence speak on their behalf. The person on the receiving end of your silence will feel the shift. They'll feel the loss of your presence. And that space you've created by pulling back, that's where growth happens, for you and potentially for them too. So the next time someone doesn't value your presence, try silence. Not to hurt, not to manipulate, but to elevate. Elevate your standards. Elevate your peace. Elevate your life. Because silence, when rooted in self-worth and awareness, is not an ending. It's a new beginning. The moment you master emotional detachment is the moment you become truly powerful. Emotional detachment is not about becoming cold, distant, or unfeeling. It's about developing the strength to walk away from anything or anyone that disturbs your peace. It's the inner knowing that your happiness is not tied to any one person, outcome, or external validation. When you practice emotional detachment, you stop clinging. You stop trying to control what's outside of you. Instead, you focus on controlling your response, your energy, and your direction. People often confuse detachment with apathy, but they are not the same. Detachment is the quiet confidence that says, I will be okay no matter what happens. You begin to realize that no matter how much you care for someone, you cannot force them to treat you right, communicate consistently, or value your presence. And once you accept that, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster of unmet expectations. You understand that attachment to people who are unsure about you will only drain you. So you detach, not because you don't care, but because you care too much about your own mental and emotional health to stay in spaces that deplete you. Detachment is where real clarity begins. The more emotionally attached you are, the more you tolerate things that go against your values. You excuse behaviors you shouldn't. You hold on to promises that have long expired. But when you detach, your vision sharpens. You start seeing people for who they are, not who you wish they were. You see actions, not just words. You evaluate patterns, not just potential. And this shift empowers you to make decisions based on reality, not on emotion. What's powerful about emotional detachment is that it removes fear. You're no longer afraid of being alone, misunderstood, or rejected. You know that your value doesn't decrease when someone fails to recognize it. You don't chase, you attract. You don't beg, you observe. And you don't cling, you release. Because what is truly aligned with your spirit will never require you to sacrifice your dignity or lose yourself in the process. When you emotionally detach from someone who isn't meeting you halfway, you begin to attract more aligned connections. You create space in your life for something healthier, something stronger, something real. Your silence, your boundaries, your refusal to engage in the same cycles, it all becomes a magnet for better energy. Emotional detachment doesn't push love away. It filters out what isn't love to make room for what truly is. So if someone is playing games with your emotions, giving you mixed signals, or taking your presence for granted, emotional detachment becomes your greatest form of protection. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who can't see it. You simply detach with grace and let your absence speak for you. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's power, and in that space of detachment, healing begins, self-respect grows, and your life starts moving in the direction it was always meant to. There is a silent truth that reveals itself only when you step away. Respect is often more clearly seen in your absence than in your presence. When you are always available, always responding, always showing up, sometimes your value gets overlooked, not because you lack worth, but because familiarity can breed complacency. People begin to assume that your time, energy, and love are guaranteed. But the moment you remove yourself from the equation, everything changes. That absence becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, others are forced to confront the space you once filled. often realizing too late what they failed to appreciate. Respect isn't just about how someone treats you when you're near. It's how they respond when you're no longer accessible. If someone takes your silence as indifference, then perhaps they never truly saw your heart in the first place. But if your absence makes them pause, reflect, and recalibrate, that's when true respect starts to grow. They begin to see that your presence was a privilege, not a given. They remember the consistency, the kindness, the understanding you brought. And they're confronted with the reality of what it feels like to live without that light. Absence creates clarity. It filters out the noise. When you're no longer explaining yourself, defending your worth, or trying to be seen, you allow others to sit with the weight of your silence. And in that stillness, the truth speaks. Did they care? Were they invested? Or were they simply comfortable with your availability? The answers come when you're no longer present to soften the impact. Stepping away doesn't make you the villain. It makes you honest. It says, I refuse to stay where I'm not genuinely valued. That choice demands respect. It shifts the dynamic from needing approval to honoring your own boundaries. And anyone who truly respects you will understand your silence not as rejection, but as a sign of self-respect. They'll see that you are no longer willing to participate in something that does not nourish your soul. When you are gone, people begin to notice all the small things they took for granted, the check-ins, the support, the emotional labor. They begin to feel your absence in places where they once dismissed your presence. And that absence becomes your most powerful voice. It speaks on your behalf. It sets a new standard. It teaches without confrontation and demands accountability without aggression. You don't need to force someone to value you. You simply need to step back and let them decide what your presence really meant. Because when someone genuinely respects you, they won't wait for your absence to recognize your importance. They'll honor you while you're still there. But if they fail to do so, then walking away becomes your final act of self-love, and your silence becomes the loudest form of truth. In the end, respect that only exists in your absence was never strong enough to sustain your presence. And that's okay, because your decision to walk away doesn't reflect your weakness. It reflects your strength, your clarity, and your refusal to settle for anything less than what you truly deserve. There comes a time in your journey when you must decide what matters more, your self-worth or the fleeting validation of others. And when that moment arrives, choosing yourself is not selfish, it is essential. Validation from others can feel good in the moment. A message, a compliment, a gesture, it can give the illusion of value. But if you depend on those outside affirmations to feel worthy, you hand over your power. You make your sense of worth conditional on the unpredictable behavior of someone else. And in doing so, you place yourself in emotional chains, constantly waiting for someone to acknowledge what should have been self-evident all along, that you are already enough. When you embrace your self-worth, something radical happens. You stop begging. You stop explaining. You stop shrinking. You begin to understand that your value does not decrease when someone fails to see it. Whether they respond or not, whether they stay or go, whether they approve or reject, you remain whole. This mindset frees you. It allows you to engage with people not from a place of need, but from a place of abundance. You no longer fear someone walking away, because you know that anyone who leaves was never truly aligned with the version of you that honors and respects herself. The need for validation often comes from wounds of being overlooked, dismissed, or treated as second best. But healing begins the moment you stop seeking outside approval and start giving yourself the love you once begged others for. You begin to affirm your worth through your own actions, setting boundaries, saying no to disrespect, investing in your growth, and surrounding yourself with people who uplift rather than drain you. This is not arrogance. It is emotional maturity. People who rely on validation often stay in toxic cycles far too long. They tolerate breadcrumbs, hoping one day it will turn into a feast. But self-worth reminds you that you were never meant to survive off scraps. You were meant to thrive in an environment that reflects the greatness within you. And the moment you choose self-worth over validation, you stop settling for potential and start demanding consistency. You stop making excuses for others and start elevating your standards. Validation fades. It fluctuates. It depends on others. But self-worth, that's internal. It's rooted. It's yours. And no one can take it from you unless you hand it over. So even if someone ghosts you, disrespects you, or fails to show up, stand firm. Let them go. Because you are not defined by someone's inability to see your light. You are defined by how brightly you choose to shine despite it. When you choose self-worth over validation, you start showing up differently. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer tolerate confusion, you seek clarity. You become a magnet for the kind of love, respect, and connection that matches the energy you give to yourself. And that shift, that quiet decision to choose you, that is where your true power begins. There are moments in life when words are no longer necessary, when explanations lose their value, and when the most powerful thing you can do is simply remove yourself. Your absence, when chosen with intention and self-respect, can speak louder than anything you could say. It's not about playing games or seeking revenge. It's about understanding your worth so deeply that you no longer argue for a place in someone's life who won't choose you with the same certainty. When you've been consistent, loving, patient, and present, and yet still find yourself being ignored, taken for granted, or treated as an option, your absence becomes your message. People learn very quickly what your presence meant once it's gone. The silence you leave behind forces them to reflect, not because you demanded it, but because they can now feel the void. Your energy, your kindness, your attention, they were never guaranteed. And when you stop giving them away freely, those who once overlooked them begin to take notice. Absence has a way of magnifying presence. It makes people realize how much space you occupied in their world, how much light you brought into their everyday life. But that clarity only comes when you step away. While you're constantly available, constantly explaining, constantly trying, they grow comfortable, and comfort can quickly turn into complacency. But the moment you retreat, when you no longer respond to their bare, minimum efforts or emotionally draining behavior, your silence becomes the wake-up call they never expected. Letting your absence speak is not about silence for attention. It's about silence for peace. It's a statement that says, if I have to beg for respect, attention, or love, I would rather walk away. It is not cold or cruel. It is centered, mature, and dignified. It sends a clear message that you will not diminish yourself to fit someone else's convenience. It shows that your standards are not flexible when it comes to self-respect. The absence you create is a reflection of boundaries, of lessons learned, of a decision to honor your heart. And those who genuinely care, who truly understand your value, will not be silent in response. They will notice. They will feel the weight of your silence more than they ever felt the comfort of your presence. Some may return, but by then, you'll be standing taller, stronger, wiser, able to choose from a place of empowerment, not emotional lack. Let your absence be the teacher that your words could never be. Let it expose truths. Let it clear confusion. Let it protect your energy, because the people who truly value you will never risk losing you to silence. And those who do were never meant to stay in the first place. When you stop showing up for those who never really saw you, you start showing up for yourself in ways that change everything. That is how your absence becomes the most powerful voice you've ever had. Your energy is your most valuable currency, and where you direct it determines what you manifest in your life. When you're constantly giving your attention to people who drain you, situations that confuse you, or relationships that leave you questioning your worth, and scattered energy leads to scattered results. To manifest better, you must reclaim your energy, fully, unapologetically, and intentionally. There comes a time when you realize that not everyone deserves your light. Not every connection deserves your emotional investment. You begin to understand that the more you chase people who don't see your value, the more you delay the blessings that are waiting for you. Every moment spent overthinking someone's lack of effort is energy stolen from your own growth. Every time you tolerate being treated as an option, you delay the alignment with something greater. Reclaiming your energy means choosing yourself, even when it's hard. It means walking away from inconsistency and leaning into clarity. When you take your power back, you shift from survival to creation. No longer are you stuck in cycles of seeking approval or hoping someone else finally gives you what you've been giving them all along. You begin to create your own peace, your own happiness, your own vision. That is the essence of manifestation, creating from a space of wholeness, not lack. It requires focus, and focus requires boundaries. Not just with others, but with yourself. The discipline to stop checking in on what's no longer growing, the strength to say no to what drains you, and the courage to choose peace over chaos. Energy flows where your attention goes. So if your mind is constantly occupied by someone who isn't choosing you, what are you manifesting? More of the same confusion, more of the same imbalance. But when you cut the cord, when you stop feeding what no longer feeds you, you begin to feel lighter, clearer, more powerful. You start drawing in people, opportunities, and situations that reflect your newfound sense of self-worth. The universe responds to your vibration, and when your vibration is rooted in self-respect, the world begins to mirror that back to you. Reclaiming your energy doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring more about what really matters. You stop trying to prove your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop explaining your heart to those who can't hear it. And in that sacred space of detachment, you begin to reconnect with your purpose. You begin to remember who you are. And from that place, you no longer manifest from desperation. You manifest from alignment. So let go of what is draining you. Reclaim your energy with intention. Focus it on your healing, your vision, your growth. Because when your energy is whole, your manifestations are unstoppable. The life you're trying to create isn't waiting for someone to validate you. It's waiting for you to return to yourself. In the end, everything comes down to one powerful truth. You teach others how to treat you by the way you treat yourself. When you choose silence over chaos, detachment over desperation, self-worth over validation, and peace over approval, you rise into your true power. Your absence, your boundaries, and your energy are not weapons. They are reflections of self-respect. You are not here to beg, chase, or prove. You are here to align, to grow, and to manifest a life that reflects the strength and clarity within you. Let this be a reminder that walking away is not weakness. It is wisdom. That choosing yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. And that your energy is far too sacred to be wasted on anyone or anything that cannot meet you with the same level of love, respect, and intentionality. You are the author of your story. You are the force behind your transformation. And when you stop giving your power to what drains you, you create space for what will elevate you. So ghost him completely, not from a place of bitterness, but from a place of deep inner power. Let your silence speak, let your absence teach, and let your energy return home. Because the moment you choose yourself fully, the world begins to reflect back everything you truly deserve.